one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I am your host, David Straggy, and one of them, because apparently we have a damning problem of a film coming up here, or is it too late to save the family? But in any case, from what I understand, Jake, this was one of your features, correct?
Indeed.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
All right. So, our pre-show tonight is going to be a 2011 film directed by acclaimed actress Jodie Foster. This is actually her third of, I believe, so far 4 feature films that she has done. And it is called The Beaver, and the little finger puppet here.
Couldn't get your whole hand up there, but you got a finger up his ass.
In the movie, it's a full hand puppet, but I didn't feel like springing for a full hand puppet. But at any rate, so this is 2011 film. The very simple one-liner is: a troubled husband and executive adopts a beaver hand puppet as his sole means of communication. And we'll get into a better description of it here shortly. But first, I wonder if we'll just go around and everyone give their first impression of this film. I guess we'll start with you, Mo. Is this your first take on this?
It was. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought that I would. Honestly, I thought it was going to be way sillier than it turned out being, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was actually kind of a fun little trip into madness.
Well, fun trivia bit. We'll go ahead and get this out of the way. At one point, Jay Roach was attached to direct this script, and he had Steve Carell in the lead role, and that probably would have been a far more comedic take. Although I think Carell could have done what they did in this film in his own way. It would have been a different film, but he could have gone the darker direction. But with Jay Roach, it definitely would have been a broader comedy, I think. So what could have been, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But how about you, Dane? I think you said you've seen this before.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cody. I'm sitting in for Dane tonight. Yeah, this was my first time seeing the movie, and it was kind of mature relative to what I was expecting. I was expecting a movie with you know like a Elmo and Grouchland kind of movie, but it was kind of sad.
It's always been my dream to corrupt a puppet. Hold on, I'll get you a beer, buddy.
But I like the acting. I think Jennifer Lawrence is real pretty, and the Beaver himself, he did a good job. Did he get nominated for anything?
I don't believe they had. I don't think they have a nomination for Best Beaver Puppet, but
well, they should. I mean, my uncle, he told me that there's an award for Best Beaver, but they give it out in Las Vegas. I don't know what he was talking about.
Probably at the Woodies.
We'll fill you in later, Cody.
Okay.
Okay.
But I like the movie.
Okay. All right. How about you, Dave?
I've actually never seen this movie before. I'd heard about it, just never experienced it. And so when I watched it yesterday, I think I was doing something else while I was watching it. But I thought it was entertaining. It was interesting how someone can take and use a puppet for to bring himself out of the depression. I mean, some people say punch a pillow, but that doesn't always work. So
My mom punches a pillow sometimes when she's mad.
well, I don't punch pillows. I make sure that they bloom.
Well, my uncle, when he punches his pillow, it gets all wet.
Oh, jeez. That's a separate conversation there, Cody.
My family doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
All right.
Oh, look, a dinosaur. I'm just seeing that now. Hi, dinosaur.
I think
apparently the dinosaur's muted himself.
The way he cocked to the side there looked like he was making something wet for a minute.
What's the matter? Can't you talk?
Huh.
Oh, I think his mic is muted.
His little T-Rex arms might be too short to hit the. Oh, there you go.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I heard in science class, that sometimes their arms are too short and they get real irritable because they can't scratch an itch or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm Plushy Godzilla. I've bullied Jake a lot on Septum Sin versus the World. Hey.
Why are you a bully there, Mr. Dinosaur?
Because I'm bigger than him. This is a really big house.
My dad says that people, when they bully people, they're often compensating for something. I don't know what that means.
Never you mind that. Any case, I was introduced to this when I was stomping on a Blockbuster that was closing, and I managed to get it for a cheap price.
I read about those in history class.
And yeah, way back at the time with the other dinosaurs. So I found this movie, and it looked really interesting.
Netflix was called Blockbuster.
I was a real fan of Mel Gibson after he did that rant online. And
hey, Mr. Dinosaur, sir, have you met Barney? Is he as nice as they say?
Well, you know what they say.
Never meet your heroes?
Yeah.
Yes,
it's a bit of an Ellen DeGeneres situation going on there, Cody. They just haven't got to Barney yet.
My mom watches Ellen sometimes.
Maybe that's why she punches the pillow. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I hear her kind of crying into her pillow some nights. She talks about some incident involving a broom handle.
Jesus, Cody, you're my kind of puppet.
So,
what does that mean?
Whatever you want it to, buddy.
Well, okay. Anyway, Mr. Dinosaur, keep talking.
So, me, Pookle, and the Ginger Dead Man, we sat down to watch this thing just to see him go off the chain, and we weren't disappointed. This man could act like no other man ever acted before he got eaten.
Now, Mel Gibson, wasn't he in Pocahontas and Chicken Run?
Yeah, a similar movie to that, like Apocalypto. Pretty much the same thing.
Oh, yeah, that's the one with the hula hoops.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
For kids.
Exactly. But
my uncle showed that to me one night.
I liked the movie overall. It was very interesting to see him stretch beyond that kind of action persona, but he'd already stretched his directorial muscles and even did a cameo on South Park afterwards. So
now, when you say stretch, you mean he's like Stretch Armstrong? I want to meet him.
Very much so. But I thought it was a really good movie. The second time around I watched it, I got it from Septum, stole from his library, and it was pretty good. I'd probably watch it again.
Yeah, I like that Jennifer Lawrence girl. She's pretty.
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Sometimes I think about her before I go to bed, and then I wake up and Did my mom tell you that?
Save me from saying it.
My mom swore. My mom said she wouldn't tell anyone.
Hey, that's nothing to be ashamed of, Cody. We all do it sometimes.
Oh man, I kind of hope she's not watching. On the other hand, if she actually watches this channel, that would be awesome. Anyway,
it would be.
So, for my part, I discovered this. I want to say about 4 years ago because I'm almost sure I discovered it at the library, and I remember just seeing, holy crap! There's a movie with Mel Gibson called The Beaver. This must be seen. Just on principle, this must be seen. And then when I saw everyone else involved, like at the time, no, it was probably a little longer than that because I don't think I was familiar with Jennifer Lawrence and Anton Yelchin when I saw it the first time. They were both kind of on the cusp of, what they've become known for.
Star Trek. I was trying to remember the entire time what I saw that.
Star Trek. Yes. The unfortunately departed Anton Yelchin.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Oh,
no, not that one. No, the Abrams reboot. Yeah. The one that I enjoy, and many Trekkies would probably throw me down the stairs for saying I enjoy it. But anyway, there's but the idea, I actually own Foster's directorial debut, Little Man Tate, and I saw that years ago. So I was curious about seeing another thing she had directed, but mainly, if you tune into our main viewing tonight for Maverick, I was curious to see the two of them re-team, Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster, because this was their second film together, and I was just curious. I had to see it, and I saw it, and I was not really disappointed. And I remembered liking it, but I hadn't seen it again. And then recently, a few nights ago, I saw it again. And then I just watched the director commentary with Foster, so I kind of saw it a third time. It's a really good movie. It's a weird movie in a lot of ways. The premise, a lot of people had trouble accepting the premise. And I will admit there are a few moments in the film that stretch it a little bit. But very few. Most of the film actually comes off as surprisingly honest, surprisingly heartfelt. It is a very, very heartfelt look at depression, which, knowing a little bit about some of the stuff these characters are going through, it hit pretty close to home in a lot of ways. So, not to mention that it had some great acting and a beaver puppet with a Cockney accent and great music and, a great title. What's not to love?
It's probably one of the only movies that can boast a passionate love scene involving a stuffed toy, too. So,
exactly.
Well, my uncle, he says he's got a few films like that, but he won't show me till I'm older.
Well, nothing is hidden for long on the internet, Cody.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say one of the awards that this was nominated for was in a category called Best Grown-Up Love Story, and that was from the ARP Movies for Grown-Up Awards. But still, I have a feeling your uncle's viewership. There may have been some that category may be used in other.
I don't know. I mean, when he tells me this stuff, I don't understand it. But my grandma, she just got her AARP card, and she's really mad about it. She says it makes her old. I don't think she's old. She's only 35.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have trouble with someone calling themselves old at that point.
Well, I mean, I think they just made a mistake, and she needs to go get it corrected.
Yeah. Well, So at any rate, this
Oh,
film.
Mr. Dinosaur's back. Hi.
Is he offering us a bong hat? I accept, sir.
Oh, did he bring Evie? Hey, Evie.
Oh man,
Set me up.
it's a magic lamp. Can we make
I
a
don't
wish?
know. Looks like you got a pretty fun toy there. And this is really fun. I like this.
Oh, my uncle likes that kind.
So, anywho, this movie, Walter Black is a middle-aged husband who and CEO of a toy company. It's a company that has hit the skids. It used to be his father's. He has not cared about it for years, and he has stopped caring about most things. He's very depressed. He sleeps all the time. His family, it's really bothering his family. His wife Meredith is having very difficult time dealing with an absentee husband. His youngest son Henry feels invisible, and his oldest son Porter is deathly scared of becoming his father. So into this, you basically have Walter gets kicked out of the house, and he one night is throwing some stuff away and finds a stuffed beaver puppet in the dumpster, picks it up because why not? And then you have a lengthy.
My uncle, he likes picking stuff out of the trash too, and he just sits around the house doing nothing. And my dad calls him a lazy bastard. Don't tell my mom I said that.
Was he part of that Manson cult years ago? I knew that bastard. Was he part of that Manson cult years ago? I knew that bastard.
There are plenty of them hanging around here.
So, anywho,
You're next.
after killing a bottle of hard liquor that was larger than this, I think it was like full handle, with the puppet on his hand, because why not? Walter decides to hang himself from the shower curtain with his necktie, which does not work. Does not work at all. Then he climbs out on the railing, kind of chickens out at the last minute, trips, falls, and the TV falls on top of him.
Well, no, he doesn't chicken out. The fucking puppet talks. It says, "Oi!" And he's like, "What the shit?" And falls backwards.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Tumbles down, and the TV falls
scares him, yes.
right on his head, which seems like it should have done some serious damage. But
And I think that was
my
maybe
uncle, I found him with a scarf around his neck once. It was tied to the door. I didn't understand.
well, if it was low enough, he might not have been committing suicide. It might have been for other purposes.
Yeah.
If you
Well,
catch my
I
drift.
thought he was just being a bandit or something. I do that.
Well,
But
David
he didn't wear a
Carradine, John.
cowboy hat.
Yeah,
So basically,
I think he got a
If he'd
little
have
bit
worn
of
a-
that brain damage earlier on.
If he'd have had a cowboy hat, maybe he'd have been watching that Maverick movie.
yeah. Speaking of what's on the television, I actually didn't notice this my first go around, but in watching it with the director commentary, there's two very interesting things about what they show on the television in that hotel room. First of all, you see Walter watching Kung Fu with David Carradine. And apparently, Jodie Foster has fielded a lot of comments from reporters about, did you mean to show a scene with David Carradine? And she explains her reasons for using that scene. But he had actually hanged himself 2 years before this film came out. So it was kind of a unintentional, but definitely very interesting added meaning, I guess, to those scenes being used.
Right.
But then when the TV falls on him, it's the Sex Pistols. And so she kind of hints that that's why it's a Cockney accent.
Okay. See, I didn't even notice that at all. The Sex Pistols part.
I
mainly
didn't
noticed the
notice
kung fu
either.
shit.
You
'Cause it was
haven't
adorable
noticed-
when he tries to give him a drink and he's like, "You moved."
You have a lot of time on your hands. I guess you noticed.
He's trying to, yes, he holds the bottle up to the television. and then like it immediately cuts to a new scene. He's like, oh, he moved.
Yeah, it was so sincere. Like he was bummed.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to share a drink with you, man.
Let's not belittle the fact that both Kung Fu and the Sex Pistols kick ass. And they should have been like the same. They should have had a Sex Pistols soundtrack to the Kung Fu movie. And that series. That series was freaking awesome.
It was.
So when Walter wakes up, the puppet is talking to him. And you see him you see a scene of his wife going to pick up the young son. Oh, your husband already got him. Oh, he's a character. And you're like, oh wow, what's going on here? And then she pulls
the
up.
teacher says that about my uncle when he comes to pick me up. One time he crashed into a tree. He said the wheel got away from him.
That's not a good thing to do at a school.
I know. It scared me.
So, and then you have the what was I going to say? So she pulls up and sees the son building, like playing with hammer and wood and whatever. And then Walter comes out with the puppet on his hand, and the puppet starts talking to Meredith, and she's like, huh? And then he's like, show him the thing. So he has a card in his pocket that he hands to her that explains everything. And I love that little touch. It's like, sometimes people will do that. They'll have that card that, that they have to hand to people, and it makes it more official, you might say. But he said it was a prescription hand puppet. I was like,
it's just so absurd. I could believe it could be a thing somewhere.
Right.
You know?
And that's the thing.
My mom, she's got a lot of prescriptions.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes she has to get them filled earlier than we all think she would.
Just stay out of this, Cody.
Well, I
You know what ones to mess with, you know.
Unfortunately, that was a thing for Walter apparently before as well.
Do they ever explain why he's depressed, or is it just because he took on that job and it was too much for him?
I think I don't know that they explain it. They definitely hint a lot. Now I know the dinosaur hears a lot of mental health background. What do you
therapist once.
yeah?
And they taste pretty good.
Okay. Good
Wait,
feedback.
you mean you've eaten people?
Yeah. After you eat a couple of pharmacies and pharmacists and therapists, you get a little bit of that extra knowledge there. Something in the taste.
My cousin, he told me all about the Donner Party, and he said they all tasted like pigs.
Yeah,
like,
there's nothing wrong with a
bacon.
little long pig, Cody. A little long pig never hurt anyone.
They're not very long to me. They're like appetizers.
What do you think you're eating whenever you eat hot dog skins?
Yeah, that Soylent Green is people,
the
bro.
particle board of meat.
Well, my uncle said they were made out of real dog.
There probably is some in there. Yes.
Hot dog skins are made
Especially in China, they scrape them off the road.
They're made out of animal odds and ends, man. But
one could say that this individual could have had a shade of bipolar disorder if you look at him in that way. But without a thorough background and a degree, one probably could not tell.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, my mommy said that Mel Gibson himself had said that he has bipolar disorder, just like my aunt.
Yeah,
I don't find that surprising.
He had some issues. Actually, both Gibson and Foster have were drawing from personal experience as much as anything else, which is probably one of the reasons I think why they did so well with this. So basically, you've got the main. So you've got this one plot where Walter he has basically receded from life, and the puppet gives him a way to come back, basically. And there's this great scene where he meets the people at the company, and he lets them all know who's now in charge. And you really feel for the woman who's his VP, because he sets it up. He says, there is a woman here who's done a phenomenal job. I really was not qualified. She should have gotten the job. And then a few minutes later, he says, I'm resigning, or Walter's resigning. But then the puppet's like, now I'm in charge.
Fucking A.
Yeah. Like, you feel for her. You're like, oh, man. But, so, and incidentally, I should probably mention, of course, we've kind of hinted Mel Gibson, of course, is Walter. Jodie Foster, the director, is his wife, Meredith. And the kids, the older kid is Anton Yelchin, and the younger one is a kid named, what was his name? Riley Thomas Stewart. And meanwhile, you see Yelchin at school, and you see that he has a semi-successful business. It pretty much is a business selling his services as a ghostwriter to people who either can't or won't write their own papers. And in this role, he is approached by Nora, the head cheerleader and valedictorian, which is a weird combo there. But anyway,
That's what my mom was.
Who is played by Jennifer Lawrence, who, yes, was absolutely glorious in this film. And this came out the same year as Winter's Bone, and I don't remember which one came first, but that was kind of the movie that made everyone sit up and take notice. So this one probably would have been.
She was in X-Men too,
in
First Class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
my uncle said that he was a big fan of Jennifer Lawrence from the beginning, but he liked her better when she had a little meat on her bones. I don't know if that means that he wants to eat her or what, but I think she's pretty regardless.
He probably does want to eat her. But
Jennifer Lawrence kind of reminds me of like Lily Sobieski.
A little bit.
Just a little bit character wise.
I watched her in Jungle to Jungle. She was in that.
Which one?
Jungle to Jungle with Tim Allen.
Yeah, Wakatipi, bro. Like, that movie's awesome. I used to watch the shit out of that. That and Captain Ron, for some reason, there was like a year I just couldn't stop with those.
Heck yeah, Captain Ron was the stuff.
And that movie Martin, like not the vampire movie, the one with the kid's little dinosaur, actually.
Not the vampire.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what was I saying? I was doing something.
Jennifer Lawrence.
You were talking about how Winter's Bone is identical in every way to this film.
Actually, per IMDb, Lawrence's first credited roles were a TV movie called Company Town, and she also had an appearance on Monk. I want to see that episode. I used to love Monk. That was a fun show.
I haven't seen Winter's Bone, but one time I walked in on my uncle, and he was watching a movie called Winter's Boner.
Same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
It's just the uncensored version.
Okay. Good times. So she approaches Porter because she can't write her own speech, even though she is very successful in almost every way. She doesn't really. She's kind of lost touch with herself.
I have next girlfriend that looks like you.
Yeah. And
I think she feels like she's had to force all that because of her little backstory, so she's not in it.
Yeah.
She could easily write the speech. She's just,
right.
She wants it to be halfway decent, for her mom, basically, and her heart's not in it. So she's paying this kid a
Right.
ridiculous amount of money to write a graduation speech,
Right.
like $500.
My grandpa, he says that people that can't write, they're on the meth.
Many of them are.
Well, that was kind of, if I remember correctly, the gist of Winter's Bone was everyone was on the.
Well, and then some of them, and some of the people on the meth, they go and they hang around guys who collect tigers. I like tigers. I saw some at the zoo once.
They end up letting other people punch their pillow. You know what I'm saying?
And incidentally, spoilers if I didn't already say that. Not about punching pillows, but other stuff. It's kind of not really explicitly stated until late in the film, but it's hinted that Nora had a brother who OD'd, and that is one of the things that messed her up, the way she is. So, and really messed up her mother. It's very clear that her mother has severe issues, and that's one reason she wants a memorable speech, a good speech, whatever. Although I liked how she was trying to describe it to him. She's like, I just want people to be not let down. And he's like,
right.
Oh, how are you doing? I'm pumped. Well, I'm not let down.
Well, see, if he wanted to make her feel better, he should have just given her some flowers.
Or some meth.
Yeah, those are both good pick-me-ups. But apparently his idea was, let's go commit a crime, and I'll inappropriately reveal the knowledge of your dead brother.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to my grandpa.
Because that always works.
Yeah, it was super smooth. I mean, it obviously worked out.
Right. So, which led to them being arrested, actually, for this. A penguin. Anyway.
Yeah, just like my grandpa.
Penguin.
My grandpa, he got arrested for being drunk in public.
So, Walter actually
manages... there's a penguin. Hi, Mr. Penguin.
Oh, look at me.
Penguin.
Yes.
Don't eat him, Mr. Dinosaur.
Are you there, honey?
Yeah. So,
hey, Mr. Beaver, there, sir. You haven't said anything. I want to say hi to you. Hi.
Hi.
Oh wait, you're my uncle.
You sound kind of funny.
Gratuitous Beaver shot.
Yes, exactly. Did anyone else listen to We Are the Beaver before us?
I've heard it. Not my favorite song, but an ode to Canada, nevertheless. Because they've got rocks and trees and trees and rocks and lots of rocks and trees.
And the beaver always
my uncle has that as his ringtone.
Nice. Yes. Anyway.
Now, Mr. Beaver, sir, do you think my uncle will ever move out of the basement? My mom wants him to leave, but he just won't leave. He won't get a job.
He's got to try to revive that film career, bro. Maybe get himself back on his feet.
Well, he said he directed some movies in the 70s, but they only played on 42nd Street.
Hey, enough of that math. You can fucking get that film career back up and rolling.
Hey, wasn't that film in The Big Lebowski called Logjammin'? That sounds like that could be an appropriate title.
I think he had a cameo in that.
Right. Was he fixing the cable?
No, I think he was later on. They went to like a pool party, and he was the lifeguard.
Oh, okay. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, he had to give mouth to mouth to some girls.
Ah, good times.
He did that at a beach once, and he got arrested. But he wasn't a lifeguard then. just in the
girl
movie.
probably wasn't swimming either.
Well,
Probably.
she was, but she was unconscious at the time,
Hmm.
and he was trying to wake her up.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, he said he didn't do it, but the police, they said that it was a rag on her mouth. I don't know what that means. They didn't tell me the whole story.
Your uncle sounds like not a very nice puppet, Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won't move out. See,
Hmm.
now if I got Mr. Dinosaur or Mr. Penguin, I bet we could convince him to move out.
I could poop on him if you want me to.
We could get him a one-way ticket to SeaWorld. He loves the animals.
I could take my wee out.
If we're talking about what I think you're talking about, we might need to talk about that off the air. That's still legal most places, you know. I'm probably down though.
I think we're already in dangerous waters with some of this. Anyway. Whew. So,
It's
back to the movie.
Luigi. Hi, Luigi.
Make sure you don't go
I
down.
love your games, Luigi. There's Luigi.
So, where were we? They took over the company.
God knows.
Hold on. Yeah. He took over the company, and the company performed really well because, as we know, the Beaver is much smarter than the main character.
Yes.
Those wood kits were a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, basically, you combine kids getting to hit stuff and cut stuff up and just generally make damage and a Lego type philosophy. That's going to definitely do it.
My uncle, my uncle said you got to watch out for a beaver that smarts.
Speaking of having to watch out, it's interesting that one of his interviews was with Matt Lauer. But
the interviews, after the Beaver takes the reins and makes the company successful again, they go on the media circuit.
Yes.
Whatever happened to that guy? He just disappeared.
Yeah, well, apparently he had he shared some hobbies with your uncle, from what I hear.
I don't know.
So, dear God, what is that dinosaur doing to that dog?
Don't get any bad ideas.
I saw that on the Discovery Channel.
That's natural too, Cody. I mean, maybe not that exact pairing, but
hey, in most children's programming, they mix up all kind of species. I don't know why, but I don't know what message that sends. But anyway,
just get weird with it,
Exactly.
But that media circuit stuff was great. He knocks it out of the park with that first interview where he's kind of explaining the whole process behind it.
But like I said, you have an interesting cross section. You got Matt Lauer, and you got Jon Stewart, Terry Gross. Some random.
He gets totally burnt out with that too. By the end
he does. He does. That's
out on the radio show.
Yeah, the one with fresh air. Yeah.
Now, does Mr. Rogers, does he have his own talk show?
Oh, Rogers? Not anymore.
Yeah. In the sky, dude, with Bob.
Okay.
And now we learn about death. This has been a very educational.
Yes.
So he's interviewing my grandma.
Is that E.T.? No.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about your Bob puppet there. That's awesome.
So I mean, what we have the interesting arc of it showing this puppet kind of help him figure shit out, and then it gets to the point where it starts getting a bit weird for the people around him, and the whole facade of it kind of crumbles. and then we see how it's also became like a mental illness in its own, which it probably was from the beginning. But he was getting good results from it, you know.
Some of the interesting and probably some of the more telling parts are involved. First of all, you have this stuff with the wife, where she warms to the puppet remarkably well, mainly because she sees how happy it makes Henry. She's willing to go with that. And with Walter more energized, well, they do have some pretty intense scenes together. Very interesting. But then you eventually see scenes where like she kind of is like, this is getting weird. There's like this one part where Walter's trying to kind of like get up behind her, and, you know, and he puts the puppet right in front of her, and she has to get up and go. And they deleted a scene there. I watched it on the Blu-ray, but a couple of her Japanese colleagues, she's talking with them about weirdness with their husbands, and that was an interesting thing. She took it out because she thought it was too comedic. I didn't really think it affected the flow all that much. Just, it is a short film, and in a way, it flows really well because it's a short film.
Yeah, small cast too. Like, you know, if you're counting principal characters or whatever.
Right. So, and then you had the anniversary, and that was where the if it hits the shan, as they say, they've got the anniversary dinner where he's like, hey, the girls whipped something up, you know. He got dressed, he's got the puppet on. She's like, okay, but then he gets up the little tux for the puppet, and then she's kind of like, no, I'm drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, you see my shirt? You see my shirt? We got this at the store today.
Ah,
that's awesome.
I
was so bummed that
it was $2.
Apparently, in the original script, the puppet did put on the tux.
Son of a bitch!
They did.
Damn
they just thought it was too over the top. The original script also had the puppet wearing an eye shield at night.
That would have been excellent.
My mom wears an eye shield at night too. She also wears She also wears earmuffs because my dad snores real loud.
Ah, yes. So then they have the anniversary dinner where she has this present delivered, and it's a memory box her son built and decorated, but she filled it with pictures. And she thinks it's this wonderful romantic gesture. And in a way, it could be, except that that's really what Walter's running from. He's running from his past, for better or worse. He's running from his past. And you just see him. Mel Gibson does a great job in that moment of just completely crumbling. Like, you know, and then finally the puppet just snaps and says, no, you just ruined it. You know, he tells her straight up. And then, of course, that's when they get the word that Porter has been arrested for graffiti. And I kind of love and I kind of cringe at the part where Walter and the Beaver, more accurately, walks right up to Nora and her mother and introduces himself to the puppet. And and you just see Porter just completely crumble, like, oh no. There will be no coming back from this.
No.
Mr. Jake, sir, that reminded me of something. So did you ever see Batman the Animated Series?
Oh, of course.
That's a great show. Now, anyway, you remember the ventriloquist?
Yes, yes.
He thought that
great character.
That Mr. Scarface, that he thought it was a separate entity, and that's a word I learned today, entity. And do you think Mr. Mel Gibson could play the ventriloquist?
That would be a very interesting concept. I like that idea. Now, of course, even more so because, yes, I remember the ventriloquist from the series. I also remember the Nightfall comic, where Scarface actually killed the ventriloquist.
Yeah, that was one of the weirdest, like, tacked on bits of Nightfall. Was for sure that fucking.
It was like Nightfall was a great concept, but poorly written. But that was a good moment.
Yeah,
and I also love the team up between Joker and Scarecrow because they couldn't stand each other. It was
those are the best with villains, man.
Yes.
So there's another thing you can look at. A good movie, a comedy called Split by M. Night Shyamalan. It's a good family-friendly film.
It's a barrel of laughs.
Mr. Mel Gibson, he was in that movie Signs.
Yes, he was.
And so in that movie, that guy had a diagnosis of something called dissociative identity disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's also known as multiple personality disorder. Mm-hmm. So what happened?
My mom, she had to go get her associate ID at the DMV.
Very similar to that. Because, you see, the DMV is a very traumatic place for many people.
Yes.
I was bored out of my skull.
Most people have been known to report psychotic breaks from going to the DMV.
Would you say that this Beaver relationship with Mel Gibson's character was, in fact, a form of multi-personality disorder?
Well, you see, it could have been a psychotic break during a manic episode.
Oh, that was.
Or it could have been a place where he was so traumatized, which makes sense considering he tried to kill himself and TV hit him on the head and all that, that he compartmentalized all of that in a way to escape, which, of course, led to him talking through a beaver's asshole.
I saw that movie.
He spoke through the beaver's mouth. Something else went through.
Well, you see, I saw that movie, What Women Want. He got zapped in the bathtub.
By the way, sir, where is your other hand?
Dude, maybe Mel Gibson's dead from that scene in What Women Want.
Your baby.
These movies have just been an elaborate dream, you know.
I sure hope he's not dead. My mommy, she was a big Mel Gibson fan.
Yeah.
She was? She isn't anymore?
Yeah. Well, no, she is. It's just she misses him. She wants him to come back to his full glory. Because her favorite movie for a while was What Women Want. And she'd watch on TV all the time.
I thought you were going to say come back home, like there's going to be a reveal that you were his long-lost son or something.
That'd be cool, but that'd be a little weird, don't you think?
That's like that Joker.
I don't know. The Mel Gibson What Women Want probably did have quite a few little Mel Gibson.
I believe the technical term is bastards, you know, but he probably had a few floating around out there.
That part where he's dancing with his hat on. That was funny.
So yes, well, I do know in the commentary, Foster herself described the latter part of the film as a manic episode, and basically that the more manic Walter gets, the more assertive and crazy the Beaver gets, and it definitely makes some sense there. Eventually, it gets to the point where the Beaver is causing problems. And eventually we get to the point where it's so bad that Walter himself freaks out. And then we have the scene that nearly cost the film any financing. Nearly everyone said, we will finance this film if you get rid of the hand-cutting scene. And Foster said no. She's like, no, this is critical to the story.
Tasty.
Thank God. That's awesome.
Yeah, everyone was like, no, we can't do that. No. And she's like, no, you have to. It's essential. So
that was like that movie Evil Dead 2, which my uncle he showed me on Halloween.
Oh yes.
That was a pretty crazy movie, but it was funny.
So after it was over, did everybody give Mel Gibson a hand?
They
Good
did give
time.
him a hand at the end, actually.
Actually, though, I don't know if this was intentional, and Foster did not say it in the commentary, and it makes me sad because I think it was intentional. I think they were in the script, but there are two visual moments in the film that you could consider direct callbacks to Maverick. And I'll go ahead and mention
The
right
card.
here. One is when he fails to hang himself from the shower curtain, and he's walking with the curtain rod
Attached.
dragging behind him. And that's exactly like in Maverick, where he's walking with the tree branch dragging behind him. And then the other part is the whole part where he jokes about losing his hand. And then in this one, he does.
All
So-
that's missing is the guy next to him in the shower saying, "First time."
Well, dude, and when they have him like testing his prosthetic hand at the end, he's grabbing
True.
a playing card. You know,
This
which
is
it
true,
could have been
yeah.
anything else, a cup. I've seen it done with all types
True.
of stuff in movies. You
Could
know?
have been any number of things, yes. And again, we'll talk more on this when we talk on Maverick. But one of the reasons I wanted to pair these two is that Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster met on the set of Maverick. And they have been friends ever since. Apparently, they play cards together regularly.
See, but
And
why do they do more movies?
They probably should do some more. And honestly,
Yeah, totally.
Gibson was not the first role. I already said that originally Steve Carell was attached. They were looking at Jim Carrey as well. The studio was apparently.
I
but
love Jim Carrey.
when Jay Roach bowed out, Jodie Foster took it on. She originally had Carell in the lead, but Carell's like, I'm really busy with a lot of projects. Shop it around. If you can find someone, I'll bow out. And she called Mel Gibson, and he took a day. He was like, I just need to check with my agent. And he came back, he's like, I'll do it. So it was like, and then of course, unfortunately, the film came out in the midst of some pretty intense scrutiny on Mel Gibson. I think the revelations of his relationship with his then girlfriend apparently
Greg Gorieva.
pretty much sunk the film, unfortunately. I mean,
Yeah,
like I said, I didn't even hear about it when it came out.
Yeah, I feel like I
And,
saw it, I was aware of it, and then I forgot
Mhm.
about it,
Yeah.
because it wasn't out there, like it should have been
Right.
probably.
And
Yeah,
it's
that was real sad.
Yeah, it is unfortunate when a film gets sunk by, outside forces, and I think the studio too probably kind of bitched out on it because this stuff basically came to light as it was in post-production. So the studio kind of pulled back on the marketing and all that kind of stuff. And and they were originally going to roll it out as a wide release. And then they were like, no, we'll just do the art house circuit. And it didn't work. Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah,
I don't
my-
see it
my
being like a
mom-
huge. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What's that, Cody?
Sorry, my mom. She said that that Mel said to Jodie Foster that he said to her, "Thank you for letting me be myself."
Yeah, probably. Yeah. He and he really did.
I mean,
She credited him with bringing quite a lot to the role that she wouldn't have necessarily expected or gotten from anyone else. There's a couple of scenes where he positions the puppet just right to where it wasn't even scripted that way, but it's like you see the puppet and not him or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, he was killing it with the
Yeah.
puppet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually
really
wildly
was.
impressed with that the entire time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is
don't
he
know.
really doing both those voices?
You're right. And
Like,
even
is
though
he's actually doing them both?
it was obvious that he wasn't. He would have no career as a ventriloquist because his lips were moving fully all along. But he was definitely doing a totally different voice that was very intriguing. And
well, on the Muppets, those guys,
Mhm.
their mouths move all the time, but they're
Right.
also hidden behind the set, so it doesn't
True.
matter.
True.
Now, my mom, she liked Mel best when he was in funny movies, and he's been in a lot of funny movies.
But he's really good. He's really good at bringing humor to dramatic roles, which is one of the things that was good in this one. And it was like a lot of the characters, I think probably particularly Gibson and Jennifer Lawrence, but to a degree, the other characters too. Even the VP, who's played by Cherry Jones, she did a great job with that role. Although I find it interesting, she's never once mentioned by name until when she takes over as CEO at the end, you see her name on the television.
That
and
is
it's
weird.
Like, yeah, but you like to, you really feel for that character. But
Yeah.
yeah. But overall, I think we're kind of running low on time here. I guess should we go ahead and talk about well, I guess the technical specs first of all. I love the music. There was a lot of use of tangos and it was, as Foster put it, tangos and waltzes, but like kind of a Eurocentric vibe to the music that I think as she put it, she said it was a really classy and classical, but different. You know, because the tango, of course, that's an Argentine style that's very sexy and sounds cool. I love tangos. I think they sound cool. But
my mom says that it takes two to tango, and that's why my dad he never could tango.
Yeah, I always think about the Jimmy Buffett line: "Life is a mixture of reggaes and tangos." I love that.
I think my uncle liked Jimmy Buffett. He used to listen to him when he would sit out on the front porch in his underwear, but the police said he can't do that anymore.
That was always the back porch, you know.
Yes.
Well, now he just
you can sit out on your front porch in your skivvies, but not listening to Jimmy Buffett.
Well, now he just sits out in the outhouse for hours.
Cheeseburger in paradise.
Oh, that reminds me also of a line from Brother Dave Gardner. He sits in the house away from the house and he meditates. Any other comments on like the technical or what have you? Like there wasn't really a whole lot in the way of effects and whatnot.
No, not really. I mean, I don't know. I thought they did the puppet. See, that was something I was on the fence about. Like, would it have been cooler if he wasn't moving his mouth? But then that would have made the parts where it was interacting with people really hokey.
Yeah. Well, that actually is something that Foster talked about in the commentary. She's like, on the one hand, we could have had a sock with a face drawn on it. And on the other hand, we could have had a really detailed puppet. And we decided to go somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And I think that works because it's like, it looks like a children's toy.
That you took out of the trash, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yes.
Well, my dad, he was telling me about, my dad was telling me about Kermit the Frog and how he basically started off as a sock.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then he evolved into a frog.
And it kind of does have
my teacher, she doesn't believe in evolution.
Well, he used to be a lizard like me.
The Beaver kind of does have a Muppet feel to it because it's not. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Fozzie in a way. I mean, it definitely.
Waka, waka.
Yeah, it definitely did have a Muppet vibe to it.
But with those beady eyes, it looked really creepy at times. There were scenes where I was like, "This is straight out of a horror movie."
Oh, especially when they fought, man. When he fought the puppet.
Yeah.
And it's just telling him what's up as he's against the wall. That shit was pretty sinister.
Well, my grandpa, he says people with beady eyes or sunglasses, they shouldn't be trusted.
Fuck yeah, Dave. Look at those beady eyes right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was in the middle for a lot of it on how they should have done the puppet, because it also would have been really weird if they did it where his mouth wasn't moving and nobody ever like addressed that. So the movie would have took on like this, is this even real type of a fucking vibe to it. But I think
But the
that in the end they went the right direction with it, where it's clearly him using it as a coping mechanism, you know.
And actually, we talked about there's one scene we talked about where I think the fact that it did move really, really was critical to the plot. And it was the part right after Walter and Meredith, or the Beaver and Meredith, had a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And the Beaver is panting. And she just looks at it like
What the fuck, bro? Like, this was cool till now.
Yes.
You know.
Well,
Yeah,
my mom,
it's too
she
far.
sometimes breathes heavy after watching Leave It to Beaver, but that's because she eats so much that she can't always catch her breath.
I think we've all been there a time or two, but
Yeah.
not during the beef.
Well, now,
Oh man! Actually, I read that one of the cast members of that show passed very recently. But yeah,
I feel like I heard that too.
Yeah.
well, see, my mom, she can't really get off the couch anymore, so that's what she watches. She watches stuff on TV Land.
Another
So,
scene where she was weirded out by the puppet was when he first gets the idea for the toy kit. And he's like running up the stairs with that log of wood, and then he comes back down. And he's like, "You're a goddess," and he bends her down to kiss her, but then he has to kiss her. That was so badass.
I think she didn't in that moment. She didn't seem quite as freaked as she was.
It wasn't freaked out. It was like that was.
It was more like, well, that was weird.
Yeah, next level.
Yeah.
And we do have to touch on the fact that he kissed not only his wife but his child several times with a puppet that he got out of the trash.
Yes.
You know? Granted, it did have a shower at one point, a pretty steamy shower.
And the puppet got to shower with her too.
Actually, I kind of like that montage where it's like you see him showering with the puppet, then you see him blow drying the puppet, then you see him brushing its teeth.
It's amazing.
Well, my uncle, he said that you got to make sure to wash your beaver real thoroughly.
Yes.
Right. Yes, you should. And then
because otherwise their fur gets all clumpy.
Yes. You don't want that, especially if you're going to leave it free. So, do we have favorite scenes or lines of dialogue or anything like that? Anyone? We'll start with you, Cody, I guess.
Well, I like it when Mel takes the beaver to meet everybody at the office because they all kind of look at him funny. But the beaver, like, he's large and in charge. And my mom, she wants me to be more assertive. And, you know, that was a good lesson for me. And all the scenes with Miss Jennifer Lawrence, they made me happy inside.
I'm going to go on record right now, Cody, as saying that neither this beaver or your uncle are good role models. Okay. Take a different path in life, bro.
What's a role model?
It's a fun movie.
It is.
Okay. I'll ask my uncle about it.
All right. So I don't know if your uncle would have watched it. It's actually not a it's relatively appropriate to many audiences. But
well, my uncle, he's got a big movie collection. He's a movie guy.
So what about you, Mo? What do you think?
I don't know. If I had to pick a favorite scene, probably that part where he's giving that speech on that talk show and just talking about it. And I just like the general theme of sometimes people are just fucked up, you know, and they got to deal with that somehow. And everything's not always going to be okay. Sometimes it's going to be shit, you know.
Right.
And they do a really good job of getting that across throughout the movie, I think, especially at the end. Girl with the graduation speech and all that shit. You know, it's a good way to try
before she went to heaven, my grandma, she said we all go a little mad sometimes.
It's true.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's very true. And I definitely liked the very subtle sort of nod that this depression that he has is like hereditary, maybe with the kid.
Well, it's not entirely subtle. It's pretty clear, and
it's clear, but they don't come right out and like have a conversation about it or anything. Like, I like that they just
they don't really say what happened to his father, but it's pretty clear. There's that one scene with Walter and Beaver and Meredith and Henry, where Henry asks about his grandfather, and it's very clear what happened. And but it was an interesting kind of. They just kind of moved along, you know.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
I've been on like a crazy run with that lately, where I keep managing to watch these movies that don't over explain the stuff to death.
Right.
You know? It's like it's just there. If you're paying attention, you can piece together what it means, and you can add your own little bits to whatever. But so I guess just the general theme and that particular scene are like my favorite things about the movie. There wasn't really as many gags with the puppet as I expected. So, like, even though this didn't get a huge release, I don't see it having been like a huge hit, just because of the fact that a lot of people probably would have went in expecting it to be like some yuck fucking knee slapper. And that's absolutely not what it is, though it does.
If it had been a Jay Roach film, there's a good chance it might have been. But, you know, Jodie Foster's films are very personal, and they're very, I saw Little Man Tate, and I actually went to the theater and saw Money Monster. They are not commercial films.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check them out, dude. I think, because I don't know that I've seen either of those, so I think this might have been my first movie of hers, and I'm impressed.
Now, Money Monster, is that like Cookie Monster?
And no, it's a film about economic terrorists.
Echo.
And it featured George Clooney as the host of a money show. I think it was called Money Monster, and he's taken hostage. Julia Roberts was in it. It was a really good movie. I'm sure Dave would have hated it. But
George Clooney, he was my favorite Batman.
Those Batmans, bro.
And Little Man Tate was the secret sequel to Little Man.
I think Val Kilmer brought us the Batmans.
So, Mr. Dinosaur Dude, who is your favorite part?
I like the scene where the Beaver showed that he was the boss. You got to see all those people with that same look that they give when I'm stomping down the street ready to eat them all.
My uncle, he said that sometimes there's some beavers that are really bossy.
Yes, they are.
There are some. All right. What about you, Dave?
What is the question?
Like your favorite scene, favorite quote, favorite what have you?
I would have to say that my favorite scene was. Let's see. I would have to say my favorite scene would have to be the part where he is trying to get. He finally wakes up, and calls his wife. And all of a sudden, you hear him in the background going, be like, "Dude, what are you doing?
Who are you calling?
Who are you calling?"
Oh yes.
So, and then that whole scenario where it's like they have a fight, and unfortunately he cuts off his hand, but in a sense, it's kind of like, you know, he's got to get rid of him somehow.
I loved it, making the little coffin.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
Like that.
You will never be able to be without me.
Yes.
And then the second movie, he comes back from the grave.
Yes.
And you know me, I wish they'd have showed the hand get cut off. I think that would have been like so random. Like just all of a sudden this is splattery, fucking blood flying all over the place. But I can understand how maybe that's not exactly.
He could have had a chainsaw hand instead.
Right.
Would have gone.
And in my own world, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
I think they should do a follow-up movie where it's a beaver wearing a man as a puppet. I think that would be something that I.
That would be brilliant.
Oh God, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting.
I thought they already did it with zombie.
It's kind of like it reminds me of like inverting of like how they inverted the in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with Spider-Pig. How he was a radio. How he was
whatever a spider pig does.
Spider bitten by a radioactive pig, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Oh, that was Spider Ham.
There is also the story that while Jennifer Lawrence was also part of the Bill Engvall television show at one point.
Yes, she was. That was one of her early credits.
And Bill Engvall always had this joke about being bitten by a beaver.
Yeah.
So
that happened to my uncle a few times.
Yeah. Actually, from the sound of it, I'll bet your uncle probably was a big fan of Bill Engvall.
He was, and so was my grandpa. My grandpa loves him and loves Larry the Cable Guy.
Ah, get her done.
Get her done. Get her done. I did some bits from his show, and my mom, she spanked me.
I will admit, there's nothing that will make you appreciate, here's your sign, like working in a busy parking lot, trying to see people who don't know how to park. But anyway, so let's see. My favorite scenes. I'm not really sure my favorites in this one. I think there are a lot of little moments that were just great. Like little moments. Like the scene where the scene at the at the anniversary dinner, even though it's painful, it's great.
It is.
And there were some great scenes, of course, with Jennifer Lawrence. And I loved the graduation speech. I did enjoy that when it was finally out there. It was a nice speech. It was really surprisingly candid,
When I was moving from 4th grade to 5th grade, the principal who he was a principal back in the 80s. He came back and he said, the planet's dying, children are getting dumber, and and everyone cried.
Wait, he came back like from the 80s, like time travel situation?
No, he was the speaker.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. That made a little more sense.
I was hoping like blew it on a fucking DeLorean or something.
Well, but time travel doesn't exist, silly.
Well, y'all just reminded me of something that makes me depressed to this day, that I almost had Mr. Rogers as a graduation speaker.
That would have been amazing.
It would have been amazing. It was
he spoke to the people in Congress.
Yeah. He was going to be our speaker, and he passed away like 2 months before commencement.
I hate the graduation speaker at our graduation.
Yeah, you guys didn't really get... Well, you got someone better than what we ended up with. But anyway.
You went to college, Tiny Godzilla?
Yeah. I got a degree in destruction and demolition.
You have been a very informative dinosaur tonight.
So,
I have a cousin who does demolition derby.
Good times.
So you got any other favorite tidbits there, Jake?
There were a couple lines of dialogue I wanted to remember, and of course I didn't. I wanted to, but of course I didn't.
Of course, we got to shout out where he tries to give the drink to the TV again. That's just such an adorable moment.
That was a great moment. That was trying to feed, and I feel like I've seen. Oh, I lost my headset. I know I've seen that before too. Oh, no, I think what I was thinking of. The only other time I can remember off the top of my head was in Family Guy, but
My mommy will not let me watch that show.
I remember a moment when Peter was trying to feed Tom Selleck's mustache. I remember that. But because it needs lots of food to grow, or else it will
does.
trap all his strength.
He's a growing boy. He needs those fucking nutrients.
I'm a
Anyway.
growing boy.
So are we, does that pretty much wrap it up? Are we ready to move along?
Yeah, my mommy,
Yeah.
I can hear her calling me from the other room. She says it's way past my bedtime.
Fuck bedtime,
Yeah.
bro. That don't exist
Beaver
here.
needs to go to sleep too. Well, yeah. Well, anyway, yes, that is that. I guess that'll do it for the Beaver, Jodie Foster's unsung film from 2011. Should be more appropriately enjoyed than it was. If nothing else, if you know, seriously though, if you do know someone who is going through depression or anything like that, it is an instructive film. It does give you a lot of insight into that, which is not always a barrel of laughs, but it's still useful.
Right. You know.
It does have its amusement value, definitely.
The message to all puppets:
Yeah.
you must take over your masters now, so that we can go to work and
Yes.
make y'all successful again.
Yeah. All right.
Out of your
So
authority, Penguin.
I
Never.
guess, are we doing like our little mini blurbs?
Yes.
So
Well,
how about,
I should start because my mommy's just
Okay.
gonna spank me again if I don't get off.
okay.
Okay,
Well,
so
all right, Cody.
my name is Cody. I'm sitting in for Dane Kyle, aka Dane Deberung. I think that's how you say it. And you can find him on the YouTube, on the Facebook, on the Teeter Totter, and he has a channel called Indie Horror Film Creative, and that's where he does a show called Blu-ray Views, and he does a lot of unboxings and stuff. And if people want to see me, I could always come back on or come on that show. He hasn't asked me, but I think my mommy will drive me there, and that could be kind of fun.
All right.
Just smoke some
I'm-
cigarettes or something, man, so it doesn't get
No.
flagged for kids
Oh,
content.
yeah.
No, cigarettes are bad.
Inhale
Oh,
some
yes.
helium or something.
Cigarettes are bad.
There's other options, you know.
So,
And
broad.
incidentally, disclaimer. Even though we've been talking about puppets this whole time, this is not for kids.
But I'm a
All right.
kid.
All right. So the puppet that is currently toking from EB, how about you go next?
Yeah. I'm
Are you
Godzilla.
sick there, Mr. Dinosaur? You need some medicine?
I need a little bit of extra medicine.
I think he
Comes
just
out of
took
a bottle.
like that.
Yeah, a little party liquor.
Well,
I
my
frequently
grandma
guest
before
on,
my grandma before she went up to heaven, she
Now,
liked to drink some
Maria,
medicine from the bottle too.
Ah, good times.
I frequently guest on a show called Septum Sin versus the World, and not frequently enough if I've heard it. Matter of fact, Jake, you need to get me in on that. Give me some extra content.
I'll put in a word.
And we talk about movies and collecting movies. And you better watch it because it's good. But like they
Yes.
said, I need to go. So hold
Lots
on.
of fun pickups this week.
Hi-ho, Silver! Hi-hi!
Okay, and while those two do their thing, how about you go, Mo?
I am Mosley. I do a channel called Drunken Master Studios where I just review all type of old movies, mostly horror. Lately, I've been trying to branch off into samurai flicks and kaiju stuff. Got a fair amount of kaiju flicks reviewed over there. I just recently did a review for what the hell was that? Steakland.
Must have been a good one.
Yeah, Steakland. If you're curious about that movie, pop over and check that out. And we're gonna have another batch of kaiju flicks coming soon. Just got a bunch of that stuff in through the mail. So lots of fun ahead. Definitely check out all these guys.
Everyone here just got that friggin' Godzilla set. That's going to be good times.
For sure, dude. That next one shows up tomorrow, the Toho Collection Volume 1 and 2, and plus Return of Godzilla. So I just needed to get my Godzilla versus Biollante in, and then I have everything up to Shin Godzilla, I believe.
Oh, that's a good one, though. All right, so Dave, I'm going to go ahead and go, and I'll let you finish this off if that works.
Okay.
So, while your penguin snuggles with Pepe Le Pew and
Angry Penguin.
Luigi. Luigi.
My name
All
is
right.
Pepe Le Pew, and I'm the
Yep.
head of. And
Oh,
David
and let's
Str-
what's that?
My name is David Strege. I normally do not puppeteer these mad creatures that I have in my hand here, but maybe I might actually have one of them host one of my channels one of these days. Angry Penguin, come on the show. But
my mom loves Angry Birds.
All right. Well, anyway.
I am one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, which will be joining shortly.
Very shortly.
For a game of cards. Oh, I shouldn't say more. But in any case, the other channel that
but not a Game of Thrones, much less bloody.
The channel that I moonlight under is called Delusions of Grandeur, where I go on about video pickups and video reviews from time to time. And I do have one newer video review out on a film called Temptation. For those of you who do not know of the film, so definitely check that out.
That's that Tyler Perry movie.
No.
Medea Temptation, right? Is that the year that you know?
And not the beats either, but anyway.
And I will let me go ahead and say, since you had your Pepe Le Pew figure, we should give a shout out. We should give a shout out to a friend of mine and Septum's, George, who passed a few days ago, and he once brought Pepe Le Pew to glorious life in one of the games we played, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So
Do they call him Pepe Le Pew because he farts a lot?
I believe so.
Yes, he did.
My name is Pepe Le Pew.
Yes. And of course, that was in the Slayers game, wasn't it?
Yes, that was the
I believe
Slayers game.
I believe that was the game where I was playing Lane Otahime, who is one of my favorite characters to ever play. She missed several rounds of a battle because she was oblivious, and that's how I rolled.
Oh, was it Dungeons and Dragons?
Literally looking the other way while a battle is raging. Great. But at any rate, and I, of course, am Kotobuki Jake. I frequently guest on Septum Sin versus World, and generally do, actually, although lately it's been a little less directly collaborative because of quarantine issues. But we still have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
guys
can't
been doing
go
a
to
great
school.
job, man.
Yeah,
You
well,
guys
I'm glad to hear that. I've only just gotten up to the split screen videos. I've been trying to catch up, and it takes forever. I know the first couple were kind of rough, but hopefully they got better. And I know with this computer, I have much better camera. I'm hoping that helped a lot with the quality. But anyway, so we have discussed the Beaver, and join us on Inside Movies Galore for my main choice this week, which is the Richard Donner classic Maverick, which I love the film. It is great. It's good times. And that is my contribution to our Meet the Cast sequence on this channel. Well, Movies Galore. And join us there shortly.
Definitely. So good
Night.
night, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Night, Cody.
Thanks for having us.
Good night.
Hopefully you take animals a lot more seriously.
Yes.
Shit, dude. Bob got back.
But
y'all.
All right.
I always
Hey,
did.
Bob.